Hi, welcome to Empty Nest Creations. My name is Wendy. Thank you for joining me today. I'm going to be bringing you two projects today using the new products from the IOD release. So let's jump into project number one. So I picked up this bottle with this beautiful image on one side, and on the other side it's blank. So I wanted to use a IOD transfer to fill in that blank space, and I'm going to be using the Winter Botanist book. So here I'm just kind of going through and looking for images. Now I had previously painted this bottle with the Fusion paint in the color Carriage House and didn't set it aside. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it, and when I got these transfers, I decided that these would make a perfect addition to this bottle. So here I'm just kind of measuring that space and then going through and trying to find a transfer that will fit that space, but also fit with the style the bottle already has. It has some beautiful cardinals and greenery on the back side or on the front side. So I'm going to put a Christmas image on here. And you can use it with the Christmas image facing forward during the Christmas holidays, and then I thought you could turn it around and use it the other way all the way through winter and into spring. So I'm just kind of measuring and trying to decide, how I want to do this. This transfer is a little larger than the space I have, but the border will make it easy to trim it down and make it fit. So on this channel, I do a lot of thrift flips, thrift hauls, taking things that people have thrown away or gotten rid of and trying to use it in a new way or transform it, bring it, make it look a little more modern, to fit in with the style of our homes today. So if you enjoy that type of content, please consider subscribing to my channel. I'd love you to join me as I recreate things and change things to fit. I hope to bring you inspiration through these videos. I will share with you what products I'm using. But you don't have to have these same products. You can use other things. You could use decoupage paper to do the same type of thing here. If you are interested in purchasing some of these products, I do have these IOD products on my website. You can purchase them from me. My website is emptynestcreation.com. So here I've picked out this image, and I'm just going to trim it down to fit right in that raised area. So I'll dry fit it a couple of times and trim it down so that it fits perfectly inside that area. And then we'll use the transfer tool that comes with all of the IOD transfers to rub this transfer down and adhere it to the bottle. I want to thank you all for watching my video last week. I did the IOD release video, and so many of you supported my channel by watching that video and commenting and liking it, and I really do appreciate that. It's going to help my channel to grow, and it will let YouTube know what you all are interested in, and they'll share more of those types of videos for you to watch. So I want to keep the wording on here, so I'm just trying to trim it so that you can still see those words, and we're going to lose all of the border on the top and bottom, but that's okay. The side border still adds a nice detail to this piece. This part takes the longest. I didn't speed this up. I left it kind of the regular speed so you could see, just how long this takes. And like I said, this part was the longest. Usually it doesn't take quite this long, but I was trying to fit this into a specific space, and I didn't want it to go over that raised edge. So I'm going to trim it a little more, and then we should be ready to transfer this onto our bottle. So once you're ready to transfer, it's just as easy as peeling that backing off and laying that transfer sheet down on your project piece. Now on glass, it's going to stick pretty quickly. This is painted, but it sticks pretty quickly. So you want to be sure that you're laying it down exactly where you want it. And then it's just as easy as rubbing with the stick. You rub all over the image, and I go pretty much over the entire thing, and then I'll start lifting that carrier sheet. While you're lifting, you want to rub, and if any of the transfer sticks to the carrier sheet, just lay it back down and rub some more, and it will adhere to your piece. So here you see I'm lifting, and I just start with one corner and work my way across and then down, transferring that image onto the bottle. Now these transfers do need to be sealed, so once you have it attached to your project, you're going to want to use some type of sealer. You can use a polyacrylic, a paint-on sealer. There's lots of different companies that make top coats. You can use matte, you can use gloss. It really doesn't matter. You could use a wax to seal this in. You could use a spray sealer, but you just want to seal it so that it doesn't get damaged or scratched off when you're cleaning it. You don't want to submerge anything with transfer in water, but you can wipe it off with a damp cloth. So once I've removed that transfer sheet, then I'm going to just burnish it in. You can do this with the transfer sheet, or you can just use your fingers. You just want to make sure that it's adhered well to your piece. And then, like I said, you'll seal that. So we now have the bird image on one side in the transfer, and then we have this raised relief image on the back. And I wanted to bring out those details, so I'm just going to be using some Rub and Buff in antique gold. And I start out using a brush, and I just wasn't able to get it exactly how I wanted it with the brush. So I used the best tools available to me, and that is your fingers. And so I use the brush for a little bit, and then I go in with my fingers. Now this bottle has a nice design over the entire piece. The sides of the bottle and around those images, there's like a wood grain detail in the glass. And so I will use this Rub and Buff to bring out all those details. You see with that brush, I just kept getting too much, and I just really wanted it to be on those raised details. So I go with my finger, and this works a lot better. So I'm going to do the entire bottle this way, going over all of that raised design. And this just brings it out and adds an elegant touch to this piece. So I'll do the front with the transfer, and then the back with the raised bird image. And I think this turns out really pretty. This would be beautiful displayed with some greenery in the top of the bottle, or I will have it displayed shortly with poinsettia, just a single poinsettia in the top. I do add a velvet ribbon around that top of that bottle just to kind of cover up the neck a little bit and make it a little more festive looking. So if you enjoyed this project, please leave me a comment below and let me know your thoughts on this one. This one was super easy. There wasn't a lot to this one. Just putting a transfer on and adding those gold details to bring out the embossing that's on this bottle. Now here's the back side of that, just to show you that you can turn it around. It looks really good next to my cardinal lamp. Um, and that gold rub and buff really makes those images pop. So let's move on to project 2. This one is a little more detailed, and I did lose some footage, and I'll explain that in a moment. But I'm starting out with some amazing casting resin, and I'm using some molds. I used the Autumn Cottage mold and the Winter Forage mold. You'll see the St. Nick there. That was for a different project. But I'm really wanting to get some of that greenery and to use on this piece. So here I'm unmolding those greenery pieces. I used the pine cones and the evergreen branches for this project. And then I'm going to use some of the pieces from the Autumn Cottage mold as well. And what I lost the footage of is the painting of these greenery pieces and the pine cones. But here I'm going to be painting the pieces that came from the Autumn Cottage mold. I've got some of the little wheat pieces and some of those, I guess they're like I'm not sure what they are. They're the little spiky things that are on trees. And so I'm just painting those with some paints that I had, blending some colors together. So I used Fusion paints. I have a lot of little sample bottles of Fusion paint, and it has a primer and a top coat all in one. And so it's a really nice paint to use, but you could really use any paints. You could use acrylic paints. You could use chalk paints. I do use some brown chalk paint for the pine cones, and you'll see those in a little bit. But you can use any colors that you have on hand to paint these. This resin paint's really, really easy. And so once I get those painted, we're going to arrange these on a like a cheese board that I picked up at the thrift store, just a small little wooden tray to make a pretty fall shelf sitter. So here I'm just adding some colors to the top of these just to bring out some of those details. The thing about IOD molds is that they have a lot of detail. And so when you're painting these, you always want to make sure to bring that out. And you can do that by dry brushing different colors on top, or you can use some waxes to do that as well. So here I'm just dry brushing on some of that brown chalk paint to the top of these just to bring out those details and accent them so that they stand out on our piece. Okay, so here's that board. And I'm just going to be laying these pieces out, trying to decide kind of on a layout. And the reason that I love to use resin for this type of project is you can heat that resin up with a heat tool and mold it to fit. And so you'll see that I do that on some of these pieces, heating them up to make them kind of mold over some of the other pieces, and to lay a little bit better. So you'll heat it up and then you lay it down and mold it to your shape, and you want to hold it until it cools off so that it hardens back up in the shape that you want it. You can do that and with use tape to hold it down, but with these smaller pieces I found it was just easier to hold it until it cools. So I'm just going through and taking all my little pieces and putting them in here. Here I'm heating that piece up to mold it a little bit. It doesn't take a lot of heat, just a couple of seconds to warm it up, and then it will bend and you can mold it to the shape that you want. So I wanted that stem to kind of go down and touch that bottom, and just make it curve over the top of those a little bit. So I'm doing the same thing with this little wheat piece. And I play with this a little bit until I, kind of figure out how I want it. And I just want it to be kind of like a border across the bottom of here. Now I'm just using some wood glue, and I'm going to, put some on the back and then rub it all over the back with my finger. You want to make sure that you have a good coat of glue on there so that it adheres well. This works really well. The wood glue adheres really well to the wood. But you want to make sure that you get a good coat on there and then lay it down. And I'm coming in with this brush. I'm dipping it in the water, and just getting off any glue that might seep out. You don't want to leave the wood glue. It doesn't dry clear. And so you want to make sure that you're wiping off any that seeps out. And using the paintbrush was the easiest way to do that on this piece, especially on the pine cones and the greenery pieces, because they have so many like small little edges. And so it was just, that was just the easiest way to do that. These pine cones were so detailed, and I used several different shades of brown when I painted these. I started with the darkest shade of brown, and then as I put different coats on, I went lighter and lighter, and then I dry brushed on kind of a beige color at the end, just to highlight all the tips. And these turned out really, really nice. I did the same thing with the greenery, starting with the darkest shade of green and working to a lighter shade as I went, and used the lightest shade on top to highlight all the detail in the greenery. And I think these turned out really, really nice. So the thing with the wood glue, and especially these pieces that I'm having to kind of shape around, you really want to hold it until that wood glue kind of sets up. So I didn't want to use hot glue because it doesn't stick as well. And I know some people use both together, and you could do that. But I didn't want to use the hot glue, so I just held it until it kind of set up a little bit and held those pieces down. So it took a little bit longer, but the end result was worth it. So again, if you're interested in any of these IOD products, I have the molds and the transfers. I also have the paint inlays and stamps and things on my website, emptynestcreation.com. You can find all of those products there, and I will ship them out the same day so that you gets delivered right to your door. So once I finish gluing all these on, I am going to use a transfer on the top section of this, and we'll be picking that transfer out in just a moment. When you have this many pieces, it's a good idea to go in and make sure that you have all the pieces glued down. So here I'm using a transfer from the Santa's Hollow transfer book, and this is some of the autumn images. I got the word autumn here, and I was just measuring to kind of make sure I had it centered. I'm usually an eyeballer, but I did try to measure here, and this piece was so hard to pick up, so I'm just using that paper to kind of move it around, and now it's just easy to transfer this down. I'm just rubbing it and lifting that cut carrier sheet. And I've got some fall greenery that was in this book as well. Some leaves and some acorns, and I thought those went really well with the molds that we used on this piece. So I will add those as well to each side of the word autumn. Fiddle around with trying to figure out how I want them to lay on here, and then just rub them down. I love the transfers. They're easy to use, and they just add a nice touch to all your projects. Once we get this last transfer on, this project will be complete. I will use a sealer on here as well. Remember, the transfers do need to be sealed. All of my molded pieces, they were painted with Fusion paint, so they really didn't need a sealer, but I just used a spray sealer and sealed the whole piece once I was finished. And now this project is done. So I really appreciate you giving me some of your time today for watching this video. Let me know in the comments below what you thought about this video and these projects. I really like to hear your comments. They are really helpful. And I appreciate you giving me some of your time.